Hello, everyone. Welcome to my podcast, When Tech Meets Ed. This is Professor Jie Ren. Today, I'm so happy to have my good friend, Dr. Yilu Zhou, to join us to share her personal journey as a woman in tech. So, Yilu, thank you so much for coming to join us.
Thank you for having me.
So, I'm so looking forward to hearing your story. So, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure, I'm Yilu Zhou. I've been at Fordham for 13 years. I joined 2013 as an associate professor in the area of information technology and operations. And I currently also serve as the director of MSAIB, our new AI in business program. Before coming to Fordham, I was a professor at George Washington University, and I did my PhD from U of Arizona. I worked in a lab called Artificial Intelligence Lab when AI was not such a popular word, but I'm glad I got to work on a lot of interesting projects. And I'm just trying to go back to before Arizona. I came from Shanghai, China. I did my undergraduate in Shanghai Jiao Tong University. I was a computer science major, and that's my brief story and introduction.
Yeah, so we definitely will, touch upon or elaborate some parts of your personal journey. So, my very first question to you is that what first drew you to tech?
That's a good question. I actually never thought about it in depth. When I was a middle school student, I was in an all girls middle school and then all girls high school. I spent 7 years there. And I always felt like I was a STEM kid. So at the time, STEM was not our word, but I was good at physics. I was good at math, and I especially like physics, and I like doing physics experiment. And I even won like a gold award of physics experiment in the entire Shanghai
Oh, that's
region.
great.
Yeah, I think the other people who got the gold award were all male students. So my teacher was really happy, and that made me think I am probably more suitable for STEM major. So when I was deciding on my college majors, so first of all, I think, I have to do Jiao Tong University because as a kid in Shanghai,
Mm.
usually we like to go for either Jiao Tong University, which is a more technology driven, engineering driven school. And then the other one is Fudan University, which has great majors in news, journalism, and, social science, and also mathematics. So I didn't had much question. I thought, I have to choose something that is very engineer driven, very technical. And at the time, computer science was one of the majors that has the highest entrance requirement for the because
Mm.
we all take the entrance exam, and there are so you can see what score is required from last year. So I was like, it must be a good major if everybody wants it. And then the other thing is, we also started programming very early. I was in an all girls middle school, and we were lucky that we had donations from Apple for those Apple computers. So this was in 1990 something, 1993 ish. And then later, we also have these I believe it was 286 or 386 machines, which sort of early. And the computer lab was the only classroom in the school that has air conditioning.
Did you spend a lot of time there
So it's the only
in the computer?
classroom with air conditioning. So I decided, after school, that's where I'm going to stay.
Mm.
And we had, some very simple programming classes. I think it was either Basic or Pascal, but I was in sort of an accelerated class. So I think we were able to have those extra classes, which is very fortunate. And then my dad also, because, you know, growing up, we had a lot of spare time to kill.
Mm.
So he decided to put me into a summer school. And I was doing drawing in the afternoon. Then in the morning, there's this computer science class. And they basically were doing like input of Chinese characters. And they did a little bit of Fox Pro and all that. So I joined that as well, and I did very well. I think mainly because there were not a lot of people interested in it in that particular class. So there are, being in an all girls school, being good at physics at the time, and taking all these computer courses and getting great scores, and which made me believe that I have to go for an engineering major, and computer science just surfaced. I think that's how I get into the computer science journey.
Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful, wonderful journey. Very much driven internally, right? Like you are good at physics, and maybe that you started, maybe as a passion, internally or something. And then your teacher nudged you a little bit, and also your father has kind of prepared you for the extracurricular training along this line, and then kind of like a very natural process.
To me, it is. But I want to say my parents didn't think I should take computer science as major. They think
Mm.
I should take like international business or finance as major because they have the very typical thoughts, girls should major in less technical majors and, do international business because most of my classmates are doing international business. It's also one of the highest score for the entrance exam. But then I was like, I have an advantage in physics and or math at the time. I feel like my math was pretty good. So I decided to go for a different route
Yeah,
to major in computer science.
yeah.
Yes.
So I feel exactly the same struggle. I don't know if I can use the struggle, this word, to describe that, that experience. Growing up, right, probably you heard this as well. Like I often hear this saying that people say, well, girls are not fit for math or tech, or maybe just pick a different major, different journey, right, such as international business, right? So part of that to me is that it's not a good feeling, right? So it's like you feel like underestimated. I struggle with that as well.
Mhm.
But later I chose a major, but not as technical as the one that you chose. I chose like e-commerce, right? Kind of like a like a blending of the two, right? Business and also like computer sciencey flavor in it. Have you had any of these struggles?
Yeah, I think being in an all girls school really helped because I think you naturally get more encouragement to do STEM work, and you also feel that you are actually good at, STEM or even programming.
Mm.
I feel like I was good at programming, but we're doing very, very basic programming, like just couple of lines. But I had that feeling when I started my college in computer science
Mm.
because I went from all girls to almost all boys,
What is the ratio?
about 10 to 1. So we have
Mm.
over 100 students, and we had 11 girls. So the boys treat us nice. They always leave the first row of seats to us. So, and they have to fight for the seats in the front. And we can go there like 1 minute before the start of the class and still take the first row. But sometimes I choose to take the last row.
Mhm.
But I think that's when, first of all, Chiao Tung University is a very good school.
Yes.
So you start to see all these, genius, talented kids from all over China. And a lot of them have been seriously programming since primary school. And then I start to see some of my very old friends, like I was in these, mathematical sort of Olympiad
Mm.
school. I mean, I wasn't that good with it, so I didn't continue, but then I start to see the genius that I recognize from childhood being in the same class with me or same grade with me. And even so, we have four girls in one dorm.
Mm.
Um, so the other girls in my dormitory, they have the gold award of mathematics Olympiad or something. So that's when I start to realize just being a little bit ahead of people in middle school means nothing in Jiao Tong. And they're very hands-on. They start to build networks within the dorm because we didn't have internet at the time.
Mm,
We didn't even have telephone.
mm.
So the entire building has just one telephone that you have to go to the first floor, use a telephone card to call your parents. So we had nothing. So some of my classmates, they just decide to apply for, at the time called ADSL, which is already the more advanced network internet subscription, but they don't want to pay for the entire cost. So they actually did all the networking in the dormitory so that every dorm has access and they are able to calculate the cost and, distribute the bills. So I think,
They're already building a system.
oh, yeah, yeah. And we had, quite some startups even when I was in college. A lot of these were not successful, but, a lot of them got venture investment. So that was when I start to know that, oh, just having good grades in math doesn't mean you're really good at it. And I did feel intimidated sometimes because
By the challenge of
by my classmates, by the things that they are able to do, and they just seem to be very advanced. I'm sure I'm not the only one who feel intimidated because
Mhm.
not everyone come with the background of programming and all that. But I kind of feel if I started my middle school and high school with such an environment, I may not feel I am a STEM kid. I may not decide that I will be a computer science major. So I think being in the all girls middle school actually helped me or encouraged me to major in the tech field. But then the good thing is that, I find that not everyone is so good with technology. I mean, there are people who come with a lot of prior experience, but there are people who are just like me, have very little basic or Pascal programming, or maybe none programming, and you can learn. So I think I had maybe 1 or 2 years I feel intimidated. But as you move forward, you also realize that there are so many different fields. There are computer graphics, there are database, there are operating systems. You may not be the best student in a compiler system, but maybe you can be very good with operating system. So as long as you find a niche, you don't have to be good with every single course. So I think later on, I overcome the fear or the feeling of not accomplishing.
I think you touched on like multiple really important topics. Maybe let's start with this, like the feeling thing that you just mentioned. Have you ever felt that you have this imposter syndrome? Even though as a fact that you already are very good at what you do, but you feel like you are not good enough. For example, could be like the topic itself is intimidating in terms of content, or the environment is too competitive, or do you feel that at all sometimes?
Yeah, I think in college I do feel that everything is so difficult. And in Jiaotong, they say that it's very hard to graduate with no failed course. So almost everyone has a failed course. And then, students get expelled for various reasons. Sometimes they play too many video games or
But maybe because of that, they are, they're building a like a game company, right? That is changing, right?
that
Like
that
the gaming industry or something
yeah,
like
that
that.
that might be true.
Mhm.
Um and I feel like I had those moments.
Mm,
But I guess you just overcome it because you realize that you are not the best, but you are not the worst either. So there's still a lot you can do. There's still a lot you know. I think
mm,
especially after I come to the States,
mm.
the education here is very encouraging.
100% agree.
One of the things that my friend said to me after I came to the States is if you don't understand something in class, it's the professor's problem. It's not your problem. I was like, that solved all my puzzles when I was in undergraduate because there's so many things that I didn't understand and I have to ask for help here and there. So I feel like encouragement from peers are very important. Also, finding, even within technology, right? You may not be good at everything, but finding your niche. Somebody may just be very good with front end development.
Mm.
Somebody may just like database, they like to deal with SQL. And other people like to deal with, let's say, machine learning. They like to, look at the modeling and the evaluation. So everyone has their niche, and you can always find a niche even within technology. That's what I feel.
So imposter syndrome definitely is like relevant to everyone, right? At some point, especially when the context is challenging, but you are learning in order to fit in and everything. But it could be very much more relevant to like the women's community.
Mhm.
And then this month, we know that it is March, Women's History Month. So that's why I brought this up. I can share a little bit my story here. So I remember this very vividly. Like right after that I got news that I got tenure here. And then for a little while, I still feel like, is it real or is it fake news? Right? I'm pinching myself to kind of in order to understand, well, am I really doing it this well or this is fake? It's kind of part of that is I'm not truly believing in myself entirely, even though I know that I should. It's just it's now I don't have those moments so often. But growing up, it could be like these bursts of moments from time to time. You feel like, oh, am I really belonging in here? So that's why I asked the question to say. So I think the from what you said truly is that the you mentioned about encouraging environment, right? So you came from all girls school, and which is like encouraging each other to say yes, we can do this, right? We got the ability, and then we have our very driven idea. We can make it happen, right? It just to the girls, to the young girls, young women, and we need to keep telling ourselves the inner voice should be like very strong to say, well, you can do it.
I think, yes, if you have a very strong personality, it's not a problem. You will always trust in yourself. You can be aggressive on getting things. A lot of us are not. And it will be difficult for us to say, I need this, I can do it. It's important for the friends, the mentors, or the society to say that yes, you can do it, to give more encouragement to girls. And gradually you will become a more confident person. And I actually feel that after I come to the States, because I become a lot more confident. So I worked in the artificial intelligence lab when I was in Arizona. And when I was in Jiao Tong, I never felt I was a top programmer. I can program, but I don't feel I'm building the world level applications. After I come to Arizona, my advisor, he's a very confident person. He has a lot of great visions. And whenever I implement a system, which he will give me instructions like, this is what I need to have a summary. You take the first sentence of each paragraph, and here is a paper. You just follow and implement that. So whenever I completed a system, he will say, this is already, maybe top 20 in the world or something like that. And I was like, is that right? Are you sure?
They believed in you right away.
I think he believed in me. More important, he believed in himself. And 20 years later, when I look at, what we did back then, it was really, world-class work. And I even have, cases where I ask other professors in computer science for their code and for things, and they were all very nice helping me. So, all these small things make you believe in yourself more and more when people trust you like a real colleague. So I'm very grateful for my experience working as a research assistant, because I get to work with some of, the very intelligent people. They have the vision. So the challenge sometimes is not in the program itself, is in, what problem you are solving.
Mm.
And I think when he said, this is, top 20, top 10 in the world. It's not the actual program itself, it's the type of work you're doing. But that does give me a lot of encouragement later on to believe in myself.
Is it also why like you are continuing, right, the journey to pursue artificial intelligence and also to do research related like to that topic? Do you want to elaborate that as well?
I always had interest in technology. I feel at least, even when I was a kid, I told you my favorite subject was physics. My favorite teacher was physics. When we write articles, I write about my physics teacher. And I would stay in school and to solve all these, challenging sort of contest physics problems. And after I come to the States, I actually switched from computer science to management information system. But I was also told, this was the only business school I applied for. Everything else I applied for was computer science. But I was told that this was the most technical IS program. And I was very much into natural language processing. And again, this is because I worked in a natural language processing lab when I was in Jiao Tong University in my senior year. And we get the opportunity to meet with people from German. This is also called an artificial intelligence lab. It's called DFKI. I think that Dutch means artificial intelligence lab. And they were very encouraging. I asked questions. I should take them to the Peace Hotel back then, 1990 something. So they give me a lot of good advice, which I think there are, I don't know, different signals sort of saying that, maybe this is something that you should work on. And I just continued. Did I think about some other domains? Yes, I guess. But I think, natural language processing in particular, it's a big area in AI, has always interested me. I worked on things like machine translation, the different, languages. And I mean, coming from China, we're bilingual naturally.
Yeah.
So it has always interested me. And I think I'm fortunate because it is a field that become more and more popular over the years. Like it never died. When I started, not many people do NLP. Like you can name the people and the labs that does NLP. Um, and I probably have interacted with them in some conferences and case. Now the most prestigious
Yeah.
conference in computer science are these NLP driven conferences, and the field has grown so much, and with large language model. So it's very difficult to get bored in the field right now
Not
because there's so
accepting
many,
that is
yeah, there's so many new things for you to learn. So I think I'm lucky that this just happened to be the field that I work on.
yeah. Now we are talking about tech, right? And then you talk about LLP and also large language models. And we know there are a lot of exciting things that are happening in the industry, embracing Gen AI, large language models, etc. So we have been knowing this like for years, that tech is one of the drivers for economies in many societies. Given the fact that we are in the very fast-paced age of AI, like in your opinion, how would that affect like women's participation in these industries and the encouraging words that I want to give to women, especially younger women?
I think tech is a great field. I think the society has changed a little bit now, or maybe more than a little bit, that people are more acceptable, especially girls, are more acceptable to majoring in tech. They embrace tech, or in general tech and engineering, more than before. So I think we are moving toward a good direction. I think in the US society, in China, there's no problem because we all grow up knowing that we have to learn mathematics. In US, I'm observing this from my daughter because when she was in primary school, she thinks being good at math is not cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you like thought about it or like figured it out like from your observation? You know why could be the reason why it's not considered as a cool thing?
I think it's related to the notion of being a nerd. right? Being a nerd is not cool. So, and of course, if you're good at academics, good at math, you need a lot of time working on problems. So in other words, you may be less social. And that is not cool. So the coolest kids are the ones has most friends, the most social. They appear in every party. So I think that's a stereotype. Being good at math is not cool. But I do see that is changing now. I see there are more girls interested in math. Still probably not enough, but I think we're seeing good improvements in the area. And again, encouragement for some of the competitions for high school students, they have, specialized girls session, like, or companies or organizations who will set price just for the girls. I think these are all great encouragement. Because if you start to feel you're really good at it, you are willing to do more in it.
Yes.
Yeah. So these are some of my thoughts, and female helping female at some of our conferences. We have women's breakfast. I think these are all great initiatives to encourage girls, because that's what we need most is encouragement, is believe that we are good enough. Right. So sometimes people say fake it till you make it.
Yes.
And I feel the example you gave me is the opposite of fake it till you make. You made it already and then you don't believe in it.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah. So that's, really the opposite of what we should be doing.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you said like about women's participation, right? The more increasing women participation, right, in the workforce. That's totally true. But we definitely will need more women, right, especially in tech, right? For example, some statistics shows like as of 2026, which is this year, like even though women make up almost 50% of the global workforce, in tech it is less than 30%. Hopefully we'll see that ratio will increase more and more. And then you also talk about on the individual level, right? Like believing in yourself, etc. And then know that you are worthy, right? You what you offer is valuable, etc. And then any organizational support that you think that any the environments or like the contexts or organizations should prepare younger girls or women to further their education, further their career, or to encourage girls.
I think organization support is important. What might be even more important is family support.
Mm.
If you grown up in a family where, female does all the housework and the man just need to relax, play video game, then naturally you will think, it's your responsibility, it's the female's responsibility or job to do all the housework to make sure that everyone is fed.
Yeah.
And so I think that is important. A lot of female quit or do not want to be more aggressive because they want more time to, you know, serve the family, spend time with kids.
Yeah.
And it's a habit. This is what we currently have. We
Yeah.
still expect female to,
Like these
um,
gender roles, right? The stereotypical expectation.
yes, yes. I think it's not going to change in one night. But if we realize that, the father can do the housework, and, if as, father or as husband, if you provide a more supporting role, more encouraging role to your girl or your wife or even your mom.
Yeah.
And I think that will have a big impact on the girls who decide not to quit when they start to juggle between family, kids, and
Like career and education.
yeah,
And
because
everything.
you only have so much time. You can't
Mm.
do everything, and somebody has to share the work or do the work for you. So I think family support is even more important than organization support.
Yeah, I cannot agree more on that. Also, as a young girl growing up, right? And then part of that, how do you feel like you are confident, right? And then you can do what you can do, right? part of that, a big part of that encouraging message is coming from your family, right? So that part, 100%. And
Yeah.
also when the father is like doing or sharing the
Mhm.
housework and everything, it also show a good role model,
Mhm.
right? For the daughter, for example, right? In terms of, oh, I am busy with work and I will get my family support in my household because someone else is taking care of the family as
Yeah.
well, right? So,
Yeah. I think it's very hard because naturally people will think, the family success or
mm,
um, lies in maybe more the husband success in career. And
traditionally,
yeah,
in
positions, yeah.
societies.
And you're happy if they are very successful, which is great. But very often that means you sacrifice yourself to
Mm,
some extent. I think it's hard to change overnight, but
mm,
I think if in the family the husband become or the father become more supportive, then we will be able to see more female executive roles
yeah,
in,
exactly.
in in jobs. And
Cannot agree more. Okay, so I have one final question to ask you, right? What are your final thoughts or advice to a young girl who aspires to enter the tech industry that is so fast paced and moving forward?
I will say just go for it. Tech jobs right now are paid very well. The working hours are very reasonable, I think, in the tech field, so you can still pick up a hobby uh, in the tech field. And I see a lot of people who play guitar or do other things. And it's a great field. It's a fast-paced field, but you learn new things every day. And you will feel excited. You will feel your time is not wasted. You probably will not feeling doing repetitive job because, new models, new technique, new tools are coming out every day. And you're working with a lot of intelligent people. So it's a very cool and fun field to work or to work in.
Yeah, and maybe like one final thought,
Mhm.
which is based upon what you just said, and then like this is a great opportunity to become an entrepreneur as well, like combined with tech. Thank you so much, Ilu,
Thank
for
you very
joining
much
me.
for having me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.